There are moments in life when something shifts, not outside, but inside you first. And this is exactly where you are right now. This is not just another phase. This is not something random. This is a turning point where the people around you begin to reveal themselves in ways you can no longer ignore. And the most intense part is this: you are no longer blind to it. You start noticing the hesitation in others. You start seeing who avoids decisions, who delays, who postpones, who never fully commits. And what used to be tolerable now becomes uncomfortable because your energy is no longer the same. You are no longer operating from the same place. Something in you has matured. Something in you has awakened. And with that awakening comes discernment. Now you don't just feel people, you read them. You sense intentions behind words. You perceive what is not being said. You understand the difference between someone who is in process and someone who is simply not willing to move. But here's the challenge. Not everyone who seems lost is against you. Some are just afraid. And knowing the difference between fear and manipulation is what will define your next steps. Because this phase is not about cutting everyone off. It's about learning who deserves your energy and who has already had too much access to it. And there's something even deeper. You are entering a cycle where your presence influences others more than you realize. People watch you. People listen to you. People feel impacted by your energy. And that puts you in a position of responsibility, but also power. Now pay attention, because what comes next involves influence, confrontation, patience, and people whose actions will force you to reposition yourself. There is a pattern repeating itself around you. And now you can no longer ignore it. You are surrounded by people who are almost there, almost ready, almost decided, almost moving, but almost is not enough. And this starts to affect you more than you expected, because you don't just see what they are doing, you see what they could be. You see their potential clearly. You see where they could go, what they could build, what they could become. And yet they hesitate, they pause, they stay in that space between intention and action. And something inside you reacts to that. You feel the urge to push them forward, to say, just go, to say, you're ready, to say, stop delaying your own life. But here is where the energy becomes complex. You cannot force someone into their own evolution, no matter how clear the path looks to you. For them, it still feels uncertain. And that is why this phase is testing your patience, because your instinct is to accelerate. But their reality is slower. Still, the message is not to give up, because what you don't see yet is that something is already shifting inside them. They are not as stuck as they appear. They are processing. They are building courage. They are getting closer to a decision. And for many of these people, something begins to move more clearly by the end of June. Now, at the same time, another situation unfolds within your family or close circle. Someone feels displaced, not necessarily away from you, but away from where they currently are. There is discomfort, a silent dissatisfaction, a feeling of, this is not where I belong anymore. And this begins to surface through conversations, through small complaints, through moments where this person opens up more than usual, and you notice, you understand that something inside them is asking for change. And this may lead to movement, a trip, a visit, a relocation, a plan that brings you closer again. And this affects you more than you think, because your connection with this person may shift, strengthen, reconnect, or transform. Now here is the deeper layer of this entire situation. Your life right now is strongly connected to other people's processes, and that is both a gift and a burden. Because while you are moving forward internally, you are surrounded by people who are still catching up, and that creates tension, but also purpose. Because your presence, your words, your energy are part of what pushes these people forward. The question is, how much of that responsibility is yours to carry? There comes a moment in this phase where watching is no longer enough, and you feel it. That internal pressure, that voice that says, now I need to step in. This is where your role shifts. You are no longer just perceiving people. You begin to intervene. There is someone in your life who requires your attention in a more direct way. Not emotionally, but strategically. This is not about comfort. This is about correction. You begin to notice patterns in this person's behavior, especially related to their decisions, their work, or the way they are handling their own path. And what you see concerns you, because you can clearly tell if they continue like this, They will face consequences, and you don't want that to happen. So you step forward. But here is where it becomes intense. This person is not easy to approach. They are strong-willed. They are resistant. They may even come across as dominant or stubborn. This is not someone who easily accepts guidance, and yet you speak, because your energy in this phase does not allow silence when something needs to be said. And what's important here is this: you are not speaking from ego. You are speaking from clarity, from a place that sees beyond the surface. And that is what gives weight to your words, even if this person reacts defensively. Even if they don't fully accept what you say at first, something registers, something lands, something begins to shift inside them. Now understand this. This is not an isolated moment. This pattern repeats. More than one person begins to gravitate toward your perspective, your advice, your direction. And without realizing it, you are being placed in a position of influence, not because you demanded it, but because your energy now carries direction. People sense that you see clearly, that you understand things they don't yet understand, and that makes them look at you differently. But this comes with a warning, because when you start guiding others, you risk overextending yourself. You risk giving too much. You risk forgetting your own process, and this reading is very clear. You can guide, but you cannot carry. Now, alongside all of this, there is something happening in your personal space, your environment, your home. There is a sense that things are not aligned. Not necessarily chaotic, but incomplete, unfinished. You begin something, but don't finish. You organize one part, but another remains out of place. And this creates a subtle frustration, a quiet exhaustion, like you are constantly adjusting, but never fully settling. And this reflects something deeper. You are in transition. And when you are in transition internally, your external space mirrors that. But here is the key. This is temporary. The energy shows improvement, especially toward the end of June. Things begin to fall into place more naturally. So the message here is simple. Don't stop organizing your life just because it's not perfect yet. Because every small adjustment you make is preparing you for the next phase. There is a presence in your life right now that does not go unnoticed. Even when everything seems quiet, even when nothing is happening on the surface, you feel it. And this feeling is not random. It is accumulated. It comes from repeated interactions, repeated behaviors, repeated moments where something inside you shifts. Not in a good way. This person does not just exist in your environment, they affect your environment, and more than that, they affect you. It may not always be obvious at first. Sometimes it shows up as irritation, sometimes as emotional exhaustion, sometimes as a silent discomfort that you cannot fully explain. But if you look closely, you will realize that every time this person appears, something inside you tightens, something changes, and over time, this has started to shape your reactions. You may hold back more than you used to. You may avoid expressing yourself fully. You may even withdraw from situations where you once felt free. And this is where the situation becomes serious, because what began as external tension has now become internal limitation. This is no longer about who this person is. It is about what they are triggering in you. And the message here is very clear. This pattern cannot continue, not because they will change, but because you must. There is a call here for emotional sovereignty. For you to reclaim control over your reactions, your space, your inner state, because right now, there is too much influence being given. And whether this person is aware of it or not, that influence is real. In some cases, this person may not even realize how much they affect you, but in other cases, they do. They sense your sensitivity. They notice your reactions. They perceive your discomfort. And consciously or unconsciously, they continue acting in ways that maintain that dynamic. And that is why boundaries become essential. Not aggressive ones, not reactive ones, but firm ones, defined ones, clear enough that your energy is no longer easily accessed. Now there is a symbol that appears strongly here, the tree. The tree does not fight the wind. It does not chase stability. It embodies it. It remains rooted even when everything around it moves. And that is the state you are being guided toward. Not emotional withdrawal, but emotional grounding. Because when you are grounded, no external force has the same power over you. And that is what this phase is teaching. Now, at the same time that this challenging energy exists, something very different begins to emerge. And this contrast is intentional, because while one connection reveals what drains you, another reveals what builds you. There is someone entering your awareness, or someone you begin to approach with more intention. And the energy here is completely different. There is openness, there is communication, there is a sense that things flow more naturally. You are able to express yourself. You are able to connect without resistance. And this creates a powerful realization. Not all connections require effort. Not all connections create tension. Some simply align. And this alignment feels lighter, more natural, more productive. Whether this is connected to work, projects, or even personal life, it represents something important. You are not meant to struggle in every interaction. You are not meant to constantly adapt yourself to difficult energies. You are allowed to choose where your energy goes. And more importantly, you are learning to do that. This phase is not about isolation. It is about selection. Who stays close, who stays at a distance, who receives your attention and who no longer does. Because every choice you make now shapes your next phase. And this is where your power lies, not in controlling others, but in choosing your position in relation to them. There is a layer around you right now that is not visible to everyone, but it is real and you feel it. It's subtle, it's quiet, but it's active. There are people observing you. Not openly, not directly, but consistently, watching how you move, watching how you react, watching how you position yourself. And this is not admiration, this is calculation, because the energy here reveals something very specific. There are individuals waiting for you to make a mistake. Not because they don't like you, but because your position, your growth, your presence threatens something in them. And this is where the symbolism becomes important. The energy that appears here is the energy of the snake, but not a snake that attacks impulsively. This is a patient energy, strategic, silent. It does not rush. It waits, it studies, it measures the right moment. And when that moment comes, it acts with precision. Now understand this clearly. This does not mean you are under attack right now. It means you are under observation. And there is a difference, because for someone to act against you, they need an opening. They need a flaw. They need a moment where you are distracted, careless, or misaligned. And up until now, you have not given them that. Which is why this energy has not materialized into direct conflict. But the intention exists, and intention matters. Now, this can manifest in different ways depending on your environment. If you work for someone, this could be colleagues who feel threatened by your performance, your presence, or your potential. People who appear neutral, but internally compete with you. People who wait for you to fail it so they can step forward. If you run your own business, this expands even further. Competitors observing your weaknesses, people analyzing your moves, individuals waiting for you to miscalculate so they can benefit from it. And in some cases, even clients. People who look for opportunities to challenge you, question you, or create complications where none should exist. Now, here is the most important part of this entire message. This energy only becomes dangerous if you become careless. Because right now, you are still ahead. Your awareness is your protection. Your intuition is your defense. And this is something you need to trust, because there is something very interesting here. You already feel it. You may not have evidence, you may not know exactly who these people are, but there is a sensation, a subtle discomfort around certain individuals, a sense that something is not aligned, a feeling that not everything is as it appears. That is not paranoia, that is perception. And in this phase, your perception is sharper than usual. So if something feels off, it is. Now, this does not mean you should act with fear. It means you should act with precision. Review your actions. Be more attentive with decisions. Avoid unnecessary exposure. Be strategic with what you say, who you trust, and how you move. Because this is not a phase for impulsiveness. This is a phase for awareness. Now, while all of this tension exists, there is something equally powerful happening at the same time. Opportunity. Because the same energy that attracts observation also attracts openings. Especially in your professional life. There is movement here. There is luck, but not passive luck. This is active luck, the kind that appears when you move, the kind that responds to effort. If you are searching for opportunities, this is not the time to hesitate. This is the time to act, to reach out, to apply, to present yourself. Because the energy is open, and those who move with intention find what they are looking for. Now, for those already established, growth is also present, but with growth comes visibility. And with visibility comes scrutiny. The more you expand, the more you are seen. And the more you are seen, the more you are evaluated. And this is where balance becomes everything. Because this phase carries two forces at the same time. External pressure, internal opportunity, and your role is to navigate both. without fear, without distraction, without losing your center, because the truth is, you are not in danger. You are in a position that requires awareness, discipline, and clarity. And if you maintain that, no one who watches you will be able to reach you. Now everything begins to come together, not outside first, but inside you. Because after everything you've seen, everything you've felt, everything you've gone through, there is one undeniable truth. You are no longer the same person when it comes to love. And this change did not happen overnight. It was built through experiences that didn't go as planned, through expectations that were not met, through moments where what you believed in simply collapsed. And that collapse had a purpose, because what fell was not reality. It was illusion. There was a time when you believed in something softer, something more idealized, a version of love that felt almost untouchable, something that would naturally align, naturally work, naturally complete itself. But life showed you something different. It showed you inconsistency. It showed you absence. It showed you situations where presence did not mean support. And that changed your perception. Now you don't look at love the same way. You don't believe blindly. You don't invest without observing. You don't give yourself completely without understanding what you're stepping into. And this is not a loss. This is evolution. Because now, you see, you read actions, not just words. You measure consistency, not just intention. You feel truth, not just emotion. And that makes you stronger, but it also creates a new challenge, because now you want something real. And real is different. Real is not perfect. Real is not idealized. Real is not always comfortable, but real is consistent. Real is present. Real shows up. And that is what you are searching for now. Whether you are in a relationship or looking for one, this becomes your standard. No more partial effort, no more emotional distance, no more being with someone and still feeling alone. Because that is something you have already experienced and you refuse to repeat it. Now, for those currently in a relationship, there is something that needs to be addressed. A silent frustration, a subtle disappointment. A feeling that at times you are giving more than you receive, that you are more present than the other person, more invested, more emotionally available. And this creates imbalance, because partnership requires mutual presence, not just physical, but emotional. And when that emotional presence is inconsistent, you feel it deeply. Now, this does not mean the relationship is over, but it does mean something needs to shift, because you are no longer willing to accept less than what you know is possible. Now, for those dealing with someone from the past, there is still connection, there is still feeling, but there is no stability yet. This person may return, may reach out, may express interest, but their energy is not fully aligned. They are not ready to build something strong, and this is where your awareness becomes critical. Because you are no longer in a phase of accepting uncertainty. You are in a phase of requiring clarity. Now, moving deeper into the spiritual layer of this reading, the message becomes even more powerful. The tower appears again, but now it represents something final. What is not solid cannot stand. What is not true cannot remain. Everything that was built on illusion has already fallen, or is in the process of falling. And after that fall comes the hermit, isolation, but not loneliness, reconstruction. You are entering a space where you need to reconnect with yourself, to understand what you truly want now, not what you used to want, because those are two different things. And in this space, you find clarity, you find answers, you find direction, not from others, but from within. And this is the most important transformation of all, because before, you may have looked outward for validation. Now, you look inward for truth, and that changes everything. Now you don't depend on someone to define your path. You define it, you choose it, you build it, and because of that, you become unshakable. Now, the final message is this: you are not losing anything. You are refining everything. Every disappointment removed illusion. Every challenge built awareness. Every emotional wound taught you something real. And now, you stand in a completely different position, more grounded, more aware, more selective, and most importantly, more aligned with truth. Because this time, you are not building your life on expectation. You are building it on clarity. And that is why what comes next will be stronger, more stable, more real.